associated, and we've been talking.
02 assists the Coast Guard with civilian search and rescue whenever needed.
Unfortunately, we've just not been able to fit it into either your schedule or my schedule.
Sikorsky, CH-19 Echo, H-34 Seahorse, and H-2 Sea Sprite.
I met through his girlfriend back in 1999, and I'd known her. And I had a lot of opportunity to go. Houses, somebody said that's very kind. You would meet academics, politicians, people from the United Nations. I mean, it was a cosmopolitan group of what I would describe as US eminence.
Was that his appeal? Was that what you? Because you were perceived by the public as being the party prick.
I don't know why I've collected that title to him and talked to him. And I went to see him.
It was the excuse heard around the world. A bizarre, almost unbelievable claim made by a disgraced prince, desperately trying to explain away a mountain of damning allegations. He claimed a medical condition, an inability to sweat, born from a traumatic event decades earlier. That event? A war. That prince? Andrew, Duke of York. To understand the man he became, we must first understand the man he was. Long before the scandals, he was something else entirely. He was Britain's Golden Prince, a war hero, and his defining moment happened in the icy waters of the South Atlantic in a brutal, forgotten war. For the House of Windsor, military service is not a choice. However, Andrew was different. He was the spare. The tabloids called him Randy Andy, but beneath the surface, he was a determined and talented pilot. On April 2nd, 1982, the world was stunned. The military junta of Argentina had invaded and occupied a remote British territory, the Falkland Islands. To the Argentinians, they were Las Malvinas, their rightful land. To the British, it was a profound national humiliation. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, made a decision that shocked the world. Britain would fight. A huge naval task force was assembled to travel 8,000 miles to the other side of the planet and retake the islands. Aboard one of the two precious aircraft carriers, HMS Invincible, was Prince Andrew, and he immediately became a major political problem. He was second in line to the throne. What if he was captured? Or worse, killed? The political fallout would be a catastrophe. The government, led by then Defense Secretary John Knott, tried frantically to pull him from the front line. A desk job in London was prepared, but the palace intervened. Andrew himself was furious at the suggestion, insisting on staying with the Squadron 820 Naval Air Squadron. It was his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had the final say. She supported her son's right to serve and fight alongside the man he had trained with. The government had to yield. The decision was made. The prince would go to war. As the task force steamed south into the vast, lonely Atlantic, Andrew was no longer just a pilot. He was a symbol of national resolve. But to the admirals in command, he was also the hostage, a high-value target they had to protect at all costs. The greatest threat to the British fleet was not from submarines or aircraft. It was from a single, terrifyingly effective French-made missile, the AIM-39 Exocet. Fired from a low-flying aircraft, it skimmed the waves, almost undetectable, and could cripple a billion-dollar warship. And Prince Andrew's main job was to fly directly into its path. He was the co-pilot of a Sea King helicopter, a large, cumbersome aircraft not built for combat. Its primary role in this war was one of the most dangerous imaginable, decoy. The tactic was born of desperation. The Sea King would hover right beside a destroyer.
Violence and air to him all the 23 so previously was intimating that the Kenites, Lieutenant Hayes for the 853 Battalion. Howard was reviewing Kevin Ross previously served in late 46 feet to imagine all this happening over water, sometimes in rough seas and stiff winds. Violence would be the victim in the water. The idea not to be drowning, but they're down.
A frigate. On the Exocet's radar, the large helicopter and the ship would merge into one blurry target. The hope was that the missile's guidance system would aim for the center of mass, the empty space between the two. It was a terrifying game of electronic chicken. For weeks, Andrew and his crew flew these missions, 4 hours on, 4 hours off in the brutal South Atlantic weather. The tension was immense, but the war was still distant. Until May 4th. From his cockpit, Andrew saw the plume of smoke. He heard the frantic radio calls. An Exocet had hit HMS Sheffield. The ship, a modern destroyer, was ablaze. For the first time, sailors had died. Andrew would later admit, "I was very frightened then." The war had become real. The game was over. May 25th was Argentina's National Day, and their Air Force attacked with suicidal ferocity. As bombs rained down on the fleet, 2 Exocets found the Atlantic Conveyor, a vital container ship carrying helicopters for the main invasion force. It exploded in a massive fireball. Andrew's Sea King was flying nearby. They were immediately diverted to the scene. What he saw was chaos. A burning wreck, thick black smoke, and men in the freezing water. But in the midst of the rescue, the battle raged on. British ships were firing at incoming Argentinian jets. And then Andrew saw it, an orange streak hurtling straight towards him. It wasn't an enemy missile. In the confusion, a British warship had fired its main gun, and the shell was coming right for his helicopter. There was no time to think. He yanked the controls. He would later describe the feeling, that rush of adrenaline, you multiply it by 2, add 10, and do it all over again. That was the feeling of heat and sweat inside my flight suit. The shell screamed past them, just feet away. In that moment, he believed he had an overdose of adrenaline that would last a lifetime. A moment that, decades later, would become a key part of his infamous alibi. His ordeal was not over. Weeks later, at Bluff Cove, he witnessed Britain's single worst loss of life in the war. Argentinian jets bombed 2 landing ships, the Sir Galahad and the Sir Tristram, packed with Welsh guardsmen. Andrew's helicopter was one of the first on the scene, winching horrifically burned men from the water and using the downwash from his rotor blades to push life rafts, filled with badly burned Welsh guards, away from their exploding ship. He was no longer Prince. He was a combat medic in the sky, witnessing the face of hell. When the war ended in a British victory on June 14th, the task force returned to a hero's welcome. And at the center of it all was Prince Andrew. He stepped off the ship a changed man. The Playboy Prince was gone, replaced by a confident, seasoned combat veteran. The press couldn't get enough of him. He was handsome, royal, and now a genuine war hero. For the next 2 decades, his military career flourished. He commanded a warship, became an elite instructor pilot, and rose through the ranks. The Falklands experience was the bedrock of his reputation. It was his finest hour, a moment of pure, unquestionable honor. He had faced death and done his duty. What could possibly tarnish such a legacy?
There are a number of things that are wrong with that story. One of which is that I did put in tramp. Whenever I was there, I was paid with the children.
You know that you were...
Because the Dutch was going away, we have a simple rule in the family that
Remember Pizza Express birthday.
because going to Pizza Express, I went, oh, it's not like that. I have no recollection.
Obviously sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly...
That was, oh, was she? Yes. I didn't sweat at the time because it's not for me to sweat. And it's only because I have done a number of things.
And this is where the story turns into a modern tragedy. The decades passed. The glory of the Falklands faded. A new, darker chapter began involving the monstrous crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. The allegations were horrific, and the prince's connection to Epstein became an unforgivable stain. Cornered, he agreed to a television interview, hoping to clear his name. It proved to be an act of self-immolation. In it, he denied an accuser's claim that he had been sweating profusely by making his infamous declaration that due to an overdose of adrenaline during the Falklands War, likely that moment with a near-miss shell, he had a medical condition that made it impossible for him to sweat. The excuse was widely ridiculed, but to those who study his life, it was deeply revealing. In his moment of ultimate disgrace, his mind had flashed back 40 years to the one moment in his life that was clean, heroic, and undeniable. He tried to use the shield of his finest hour to defend his darkest. It did not work. He was stripped of his titles, his charities, his public life. The hero of the Falklands was erased by the pariah of the 21st century. The story of Prince Andrew and the Falklands War is not just about a forgotten conflict. It is the story of how even the highest peaks of heroism cannot shield a man from the consequences of his own choices. It is the story of how a golden prince, forged in the fires of war, could ultimately become the architect of his own spectacular downfall. Prince Andrew served for 20 years in the Royal Navy. In 2022, he was stripped of all his honorary military appointments and royal patronages.
So I'm carrying on and trying to improve those things that I'm already doing. It has been what I would describe as how did he get to where he was? I don't believe it's been damaging to the Queen. It has to me.
Subject again. Is there anything you feel has been left unsaid?
What is required. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to discuss this with you.
Your Royal Highness, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.